So go ahead.
Steve, it's 11 o'clock. Actually, it's 1 minute after, and we like to keep these things on time. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. I will start with the commercial messages, and then we'll turn it over to you in just a moment. So first, just welcome to everyone. My name is Alan Reed. I'm the Executive Director of the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network. We wish we could be with you in person, sharing a cup of coffee or a sandwich. But in the meantime, this is the best we can do. And we're kind of grooving on it. Actually, it's fun to just sort of connect on an ongoing basis and just make sure that everybody's staying up to speed on what's happening in industry, because things are changing so very quickly. I'll cover in just a second that we actually have a series of events on an ongoing basis. We appreciate you being a part of it. Appreciate you joining us today. And again, much more to come. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network, we're a 3-year-old mission-driven industry organization. We bring together the food and beverage industry of the greater Chicagoland area to, I'll say, just connect, create a better ecosystem, collaborate, and fundamentally do 3 things: grow the industry, grow the local economy, and create jobs. Those are important every day, but they're especially important as we face crises, as we're currently working through, and we're doubling down on those efforts in a variety of ways. One of the ways we're doing that is through a new nonprofit we have called Bigger Table. Bigger Table brings together the food and beverage industry of Chicagoland to do, I'll say, terrific community building activities. Last year, we did a pilot where we had several companies come together, donate their ingredients, their time, their skills, and we produced products specifically to go to food banks. Little did we know that this was going to be a big deal, so we are now doing it again and massively scaling up there. More to come as those details come together, but we are very close to delivering about 250,000 servings to food banks of food designed specifically for them in this incredibly, I'll say, just complicated time, and at a time when food insecurity is certainly on the rise. With that, I will introduce today's speaker, who almost needs no introduction, Steve Gaither from CA Branding. Steve, take it away.
All right, let me see if I could figure out this very high-tech share screen. Let me know if it comes through, and I'll go full screen. Are we there? All right, cool. First, before I dig in, I got a very important question from Matt Matros, lovely and talented fella. The COVID haircut came from wall clippers and my 18-year-old daughter, who is getting better each and every turn. Welcome to my undisclosed location, my bunker here underground. I am Steve Gaither. I'm with CA Fortune. Quick 101 on CA Fortune. National sales agency, the only privately held one out there. Full channels from natural to conventional. We have an outsourced sales accelerator called CA Build. We have a branding, creative, package design, and digital marketing group called CA Branding, and CA Ecom, which is Amazon.com, Kroger.com, Walmart.com, and soon to be Kroger.com. Holistically, we are a consumer brands agency. If you're a CPG, we probably have you covered is the goal, right? So today I'm gonna talk about the shoppable content, right? Shoppable content to me is it's sort of a mix between brick and mortar, click and brick, digital and e-com. There's often in the past, there's been all these buckets, and what we've been trying to do is really tie them all together. So I'm gonna break this down sort of for 3 chunks of companies. One for sort of the companies under $1 million. One company is maybe 1 to 10 million, and then 10 million plus. They're all the same sort of infrastructure or modules, but they get more robust as you sort of go up. So I'm going to start with sort of the basics. So if you're later on down the road, don't worry, I'm getting to you. For those early stage emerging companies, these folks are probably self-manufacturing or relatively new to a co-man. local or regional retailers, maybe some alternative food service, front of the counter stuff, like at your quick serve restaurants, at places like Limitless. There you go, Matt. Minimal working capital. With those folks, usually the place to sort of start them and think about while they're doing a multi-channel strategy, let's say if they're going with regional retail and alternative food service, how can they handle digital? So I usually start them up with a relatively simple way to go. Shopify is my preferred methodology to set up that e-com shop. You can make it look good like that front-facing consumer website, as well as adding the e-com portion to it. There's a number of different platforms you can use out there. I prefer Shopify specifically because it translates really well to, I could take that Shopify site and turn it into an Amazon store relatively easy. So now when you have your infrastructure, your actual site, you set that up with e-commerce products. And we could talk a little bit more about that through the Q&A session on what sizing and what things ship better than others between cold supply and everything else. But after you get your Shopify site set up and your Amazon site set up, first thing you got to figure out is, how do I actually fulfill this stuff? So you have to find a 3PL distributor. 3PL stands for third-party logistics. It's relatively easy to find those folks. I know Alan probably has a bunch of folks as well. Relatively easy to find them for ambient or shelf stable. A little bit more difficult when it comes to cold supply chain, especially when it comes to frozen. You might have to piece together a bunch of regionals together with that. Not to plug anybody, but I usually use Will Madden with Whole Brain Consulting to sort of help me figure out that cold supply chain 3PL distributor based on who my products are and what regions I want to launch. So now you have your website set up with Shopify, you have your Amazon set up, you have your fulfillment partner, which is your third-party logistics distributor. That's sort of your basic setup. So the first thing I do is, now that I have this set up, how do I get traffic there? I tend to start off with digital social ads. Digital social is relatively quick for growth, relatively cheap for growth, but there is a ceiling on it. So it's a great place to start. It just won't take you to the hockey stick to a $100 million company, but it's a great starting point when you're under $1 million in revenue to sort of get going. And when I say social, I don't mean the social of past, right? When we start off, we took Unilever and Axe deodorant as the first brands on Twitter, launched major campaigns with Dish Network, took them from 40,000 fans to 4.5 million and got 10x ROI, all built on this idea of organic social. Those days are over, right? Everything now with social is a pay-to-play game. It's basically display. So when I'm running an ad on digital, I really don't care about fans. I don't care about engagement. Everything I do has to be built to convert and sell. So when I shoot an ad up, I want to definitely make it look more like this with a shop now or buy now button, not like this, right? I really don't care about engagement. I don't care about building a lifestyle. Branding without conversion is dead in this case. If you're going to spend money, make sure you're spending money on actually driving sales, right? That's been a shift over the past couple of years, and it's only becoming stronger. So don't believe the smoke and mirrors from folks trying to tell you to build engagement and all those things. Those days are pretty much past. So I get my digital social ads, I drive them to my Shopify site, and my 3PL distributor fulfills that. Amazon's slightly different. Amazon is sort of like a grocery store. It just happens to be online. I'm not worried about driving a ton of people to the grocery store first. What I'm trying to do is get the people in the store to buy my product. So that's where you focus on Amazon ads, Amazon SEO to actually show up within Amazon to get your products ranked on search terms and relevant items. We have a whole team dedicated to that with CA Ecom. We do it on a commission basis. There's other models. There's retainer-based models. There's ad-based models, and then there's commission-based models. I tend to lean towards the commission-based model on that because it's less upfront money, and it sort of prepares you when you're building in your margins. It sets you up for working like you do with a broker anyways. You have to have that 5% built in. So having those margins built in for Amazon is usually no big deal either. So you've got your 3PL distributor, you have your Shopify, you have your Amazon, you're driving digital ads through Shopify, digital ads to Shopify, and you're driving Amazon ads to Amazon. Amazon likes a little bit of traffic, third-party traffic sent to their site to actually bump up your rankings. You have to find that right mix. It might be 90% of your ads go to digital, to Shopify, and 10% go to Amazon, or it might be 95-5. You want to play with it to find out where that diminishing return is, because you're going to make much better margins with Shopify, but you're going to have a lot higher ceiling with Amazon on your growth. So while Shopify ceiling might be here, Amazon's ceiling might be here a little higher. So you want to play that game anyways, even though you might lose a little bit of margins. You just have to figure out that right balance. So for companies under $1 million that are just getting started in retail, maybe going with their local folks like your Pete's or your Mariano's or whatever the case might be, this, I can do a multi-channel strategy, own home on the retail side, set up my, just for nomenclature's sake, I call Shopify and e-com, I call that DTC or direct to consumer. Amazon, I'm gonna call that Amazon consumer, just so we get the common words down. Now I can get my retail going, my alternative food service going, and my direct to consumer and Amazon going. A little bit siloed at the beginning, but that's how I start off with emerging brands or companies under $1 million. Now, as I get a little bit bigger, and as I'm going to Series A, B, or C, or companies from 1 to 10 million, these folks are more likely co-manufacturing unless they put a bunch of CapEx into building out their own plant, but they're probably co-man. Going from regional to multi-regional distribution, relatively reasonably funded if they got past a Series A or beyond. It's a little bit different game. So you have the same infrastructure set up with your direct-to-consumer and your Amazon and your 3PL, but now you have your traditional food distribution. So you're probably moving away from, as you go to multi-region, probably moving away from your Unified Next or your Fortune Fish or your local distributors, and moving more into one or multiple DCs of Unify or KeHE. And your brick and mortar consumer now comes from your Whole Foods, your Kroger's, your Targets, your Costco's, right? While those are moving and you get your retail distribution on that side, running typically through Unify or KeHE is about 80% unless you're direct. Each one of these retailers typically has this click and brick component to it, which is retailername.com, whether it's Kroger.com, Walmart.com, click and pick, where you actually place your order online, then you go to the store and pick it up, or actual delivery with Instacart and Shipt, actually bringing it to your house, right? So obviously during COVID, we've trained a whole new generation. While they were growing, they were still relatively small pre-COVID. Post-COVID, Alan and I were just joking about this. Grandma now is doing click and pick. Grandma is doing Instacart. We're training multiple generations on how to use this, and they're finding out not only is it good for social distancing, not to go into the store, but it's also freeing up a lot of my time. I don't necessarily have to spend all that time in the store. I can simplify it, have more time in my life by doing click and pick, Instacart, and Shipt, right? At the same time, with my brick and mortar folks, I'm stuck with trade spend, right? And that's gonna vary by retailer and by category, but it's somewhere between 15 to 30% of your dollars should be allocated to trade spend, which is basically additional dollars in the pocket of the retailer. Now there's typically 5 triggers or 5 points when it comes to trade spend. 2 of them you try to run away from like the plague whenever possible. Those are slotting and free fills. Slotting is basically paying for real estate, paying for air. Free fills is, depending on the retailer, depending on the product, might be, hey, you have to give me a case and a half of free fills, which for each of my stores if I'm gonna put you in there. Those don't do you any good, right? Retailers like them because it's free money for them. For you, that's not really a good spend. So the ones that actually do have velocity tied to them, which is sales per unit per store per week, are demo, which isn't happening a whole lot right now with COVID. Promo, which is either instead of your $2.99 price, it's on promo for $1.99 or 2 for $4 or whatever the case might be. And the fifth one is display, actually getting placement in the store sort of along the way. Now with Click and Brick sort of going in the rise, we're finding more opportunities today compared to yesterday of actually saying, especially when we're coming into a category review, of saying, hey, retailer, I know you want money in your pocket, but I also know you want two things. You want to know if you put this product on the shelf, how I'm going to outturn the competitor. And number two, how I'm going to bring new people to the category. So the way I want to do that is actually by putting money into your Publix.com or your Kroger.com or your Click and Pick and support that with Instacart and Shipt. That's how I'm going to still keep money in your pocket while also driving growth to your category. So that becomes the new sort of breakdown. Now we have 4 different buckets, right? We have brick and mortar, we have Click and Brick consumer, we have DTC, and we have Amazon. Now when I'm running my digital ads, I can send them to multiple points. I have multiple levers or triggers to pull. One, if I want to support brick and mortar, I can send them to coupons.com and actually get my digital coupon for those folks. Or I can drive my ads to Click and Brick consumer, whether it's retailerName.com, Click and Pick, or Instacart. Or I can send them to direct to consumer, or depending on how much I want to support Amazon, send some of that traffic over to Amazon. Now, what you want to do is figure out the right times to do that. If I'm on promo at my brick and mortar or Click and Brick, I don't necessarily want to send ads over to my retailer while I'm on promo. I'm basically double spending. I'm spending for that real estate and the promo in the store, then I'm spending for the ads to drive them there. So if I'm on promo at the store, most of my ads in that region will probably go to direct to consumer and or Amazon. Then when I'm off promo in the store, and if I'm trying to support my retailer, either I just got in a planogram or I'm having some velocity issues, then I'm going to want to send my digital ads over to brick and mortar or Click and Brick. Make sense? Everybody collectively nod your heads.
Steve, we do have a couple of questions. I don't want you to get too far as we're. So first, Matt Matros would like to know, how did you know his grandma was doing Click and Pick?
Well, a lot happens in my undisclosed bunker, so.
Oh,
no, I mean, obviously, you and I were talking about it. I mean, my mother, I had to train her on Instacart, but now she did it. She found her own Instacart shopper off market, but she also found, Walmart pickup. It becomes the new norm, especially when their sons and daughters are yelling at them not to go into stores. That's insane. And we have to educate them on how to do it. So more and more of those folks are being educated on how to use these tools. A lot of them with pressure from Gen X and millennials.
And then the other question is, when I'm not sure specifically what this is referring to, but you're talking more about trade spend or marketing spend to do shopper marketing and drive digital sales?
Well, see, that's the cool part about it, right? So traditionally, and that's why I really love being a part of CA Fortune, to me, you can really tie them all together, right? I could cheat a little bit more because I have access to the salespeople. Traditionally, shopper is marketing spend. But shopper is now also being leveraged against trade spend. So if I have my 20 or 30% or 15 or 30% dedicated towards trade spend, if I'm negotiating and thinking of it less as marketing dollars and more of potential using that of the trade spend dollars, I'm not actually adding to my marketing spend. What I'm trying to do is negotiate and make my trade spend more effective by using Click and Brick, right? For example. So instead of increasing, if I have multiple budgets, especially with a larger company, you've got your trade budget, and then you've got your digital budget, then you have your e-com budget. Some people don't have shopper budget at that point. I like to think I could steal some of that money from the trade spend bucket rather than adding to the marketing bucket. That's not always the case. More and more retailers are starting to play that game today compared to yesterday. So trying to leverage that when you're talking to your category buyer, when you're coming into that category review and saying, this is how I'm going, if you put it on the shelf, this is how I'm going to get it off the shelf. You make a compelling story, you can leverage that in. And we are finding some success doing that.
So a couple more questions have come in. What share of retail chains are open to moving away from free fills?
More today than yesterday, but not enough. You know, it's, I think more and more folks are, you can't go in asking the retailer what you need to do. You have to come up, when you're coming up with your retailer deck, you have to tell a compelling story of how you're going to support it. And by leveraging, once again, in the end, they all just want money in their pocket. So realize that creating their retailer.com is not an incremental cost to them. If they add another brand on there, they're not actually adding a cost. You can actually argue that it's just like air. You just happen to be getting velocity out of it. It doesn't cost them anymore to put you on that system. That's how you can leverage the argument. Once again, show that I'm going to actually help move this product. And when I put this model into it, not only am I going to put money into Publix.com, I'm also going to drive additional traffic to your house to make your free asset even more valuable to them, right? So it's all about the pitch to the retailer and trying to make a compelling argument of how you're going to support the product with the retailer while keeping money in their pocket.
Terrific. We still have some questions coming in. We will get to those, but I just wanted to take a breath, and we'll come back and continue to answer questions as we go. And Steve, carry on.
Okay, cool. Well, so what this happens, this is the basic setup for basically companies 0 to 10 or 20 million. It's a little bit more of a manual process, right? So I'm going through, I have my promo schedule set up with my sales team, and then I'm running my digital ads and making sure I have staggering schedules. It's a little bit more manual sort of approach, but it still works, right? As I get into bigger companies, 10, 20, 50, $100 million companies, these guys are co-manufacturing, national distribution, more well-funded, sort of along the way. I have to play a different game with these same folks. It's the same bones, if you will, from what we do for the smaller companies. It's just more bells and whistles on top and more automation. So the first thing that we call our program Stitch 360 because there wasn't one partner we could go to out there to find this solution. So we had to find multiple partners. And I'll tell you the types of partners we found and we created that we were successful with. You can either, you can lean on us or you can create your own partnerships. But these are the types of things that I recommend you actually build and create as you're growing and getting past sort of that more manual sort of foundational set to actually put fuel on the fire. So the first thing we do is we found a partner that does spend optimization, right? So I can go in, look at all the trade spend, shopper spend, digital spend, e-com spend, run it through the algorithm, pull this thing out and find out how the spend should be optimized, as well as come up with predictable models and pro formas for if I change this or adjust this, how this will tie to velocity and or sell through, right? So that was the first thing we had to find was if we're coming into a $50 million company, they probably are working with multiple buckets along the way of a lot of inefficient spends. Let's take a look holistically at those buckets, tie it into an aggregated plan, find out the inefficiencies and efficiencies and get that rolling. So that was sort of step one. After we got that audit and that organization and the optimized sort of spend or balance thereof, then we move into the next three buckets. One is traditional programmatic. These are sort of a dime a dozen out there. There's a lot of programmatic folks out there, whether it's ad networks, et cetera. It's beyond social now. Now I'm going into any place that I can present any sort of media, right? The main thing is I want to find the right geo, the right demographic, and the right psychographic. So I could partner with one of those programmatic agencies to find the right geo, psycho, and demo. So now I can go buy my ads and buy them on an effective aggregate level. Then the second thing we had tied to it is when I'm working with my emerging brands and we go through our creative platform and our brand idea, we typically come up with 3 to 5 persona groups, whether it's Yoga Mom, whether it's Keto Joe, or whether it's the guy sitting on the couch watching NASCAR. We have these different persona types, and we'll run different campaigns doing A/B testing sort of on each one. With AI, I can take those 3 or 4 persona types, break it down into multiple chunks or segments, and actually spit out 250,000 to 1 million variations of that ad. So now I can, each individual person might get a different background, a different product shot, a different headline, and I can mix and match those up to find out which ad works with which geo, psycho, and demo combination to really bring that together. I can even do the same thing with video. I could shoot a day's worth of B-roll video and actually run it into the machine, and the machine will actually spit out individual ads to where if I run 100 video ads, 100 different people will see 100 completely different ads sent their way because I'm stitching together all these components based on their geo, psycho, or demo preferences. But the most important is tying it to the shoppable, where we did it sort of manually before by using unique IDs and links and saying, I'm going to drive this traffic to brick and mortar, this traffic I'm going to send to click and brick, this traffic I'm going to send to DTC, and this traffic I'm going to send to Amazon. We've got a different methodology of how to sort of automate this sort of across the board. So the first thing we did, we had to find a core audience or a segmentation type. So we partnered with a group that has 20 million users out there, hardcore consumer users. I've got a crap ton of recipe data and how they integrate with recipes tied to their shopping patterns, their preferred retailers and shopping methods, as well as basket preferences. If I buy this, I will also buy this sort of combinations. So we start our campaign sort of in this 20 million user base to find out how to really maximize all this geo, psycho, demo, and AI and really get this machine flying. So even to the point where I can go to Florida and actually get somebody in Florida, and let's say there's a Piggly Wiggly and a Publix nearby and I'm in both locations, I can actually pull the algorithm and price shop between the two to see which one's better price for the consumer or better margins for me, as well as make sure they're in stock and inventory. And if the price is right and if in stock, I will send the consumer there. But not only send them there, also know with that retailer or preferred retailer, what's their preferred delivery mechanism? Is it going into the store? Is it click and pick? Is it Instacart or shipped? What's the preferred way they want to receive that? If no Piggly Wiggly or Publix nearby, the algorithm can then shoot them directly to direct to consumer and or Amazon, depending on my algorithm I have set up. So it's the same basics I had before, but now it's just automatic, right? So it's all happening behind the scenes and getting smarter and smarter on a daily basis, right? So then once I have this all put together and I find my core group through my 20 million audience, then I can run those key insights back against programmatic, dump it in the machine, find like-based audiences to expand what worked and really put fuel on the fire and bring this thing out, right? So as I get this, now I can get some pretty crazy things going. One, I could geofence. So if I know a consumer has walked into my store and they allowed me with permissions, I can actually shoot them a text to let them know we're on promo in aisle 5. I can run this digital AI component that I talked about. I could do chat bots to actually engage with them on ongoing communication as they're walking through their shopper experience, as well as shoppable content, not only finding how to deliver them up that call to action for that product, also finding the super consumer that instead of selling $5 to that consumer, I can sell them $50 worth of goods, either by increasing their basket size or increasing frequency of times that they consume my product sort of along the way. So when you put all these together, that's really where this magic can happen and really take one-to-one marketing into multiple usage occasions and multiple frequency and larger basket sizes. But the most important thing in the end, even related to the earlier approaches, no matter what, everything has to drive somebody to a cart, a redemption, or a sale. no matter what, if you aren't driving to that measurable conversion point, either on sales lift, velocity, coupon redemption, and or sales on direct to consumer or Amazon, and you're not proving it, don't believe any smoke and mirrors that talk about impressions or talk about clicks or talk about engagement. It all comes down to, if you're spending $1, making sure you're getting more than $1 back on whatever you do, and supporting whatever channel you need to support at that particular time. So I know that was very high level. We're talking to a lot of folks here, from very startup companies all the way to multi-billion-dollar companies on this call. So I kept it pretty vague, but sort of the guidelines are modular and build on one another. But I thought I'd let the Q&A sort of drive the bus from here, if that's cool with you guys.
Terrific. Thanks, Steve. And we do have some questions coming in. And again, I encourage more. Please, again, use the Q&A or chat feature, and we'll go from there. The questions coming in are, one, if you're new in store, why not promote a launch, TPR, temporary price reduction, with a digital ad? Since there's no browsing in store, it effectively enables a brand to connect with shoppers and new products. So we aren't going to do demos. Is that a good replacement for demos, or what are your thoughts on that?
You just realize you're double spending, because you're spending in the store on that promotion, and then you're spending on ad to drive them. I used to have the old, chart I used to draw on the whiteboard, 3 different ponds, right? So I'm fishing in the retailer pond, I'm fishing in the digital pond, and then I'm fishing in the Amazon pond. Before I go spending money on driving people to the pond, I want to make sure to catch the people in the pond first. Otherwise, if I catch people in the digital pond, I spend money to catch them, and then I dump them into the retailer pond, I'm double spending, right? If I'm on promo. So just realize, if you do that, you're going to be double spending, and making sure when you add up your total margins, you have your cost of goods, you have your trade spend, you have your distributor spend, you have your broker spend, but then you also have to put above the line your marketing spend on top of that, which might not be a good spend for you. So that's why I typically do it off promo and on promo, so I'm not double spending on those channels.
Terrific, thanks. And then a great question. How can we have a compelling story with a retailer when they only want marketing dollars spent within their ecosystem? Like, they don't want to hear about a national plan. They only want to hear about what's happening at Kroger, what's happening at Amazon, what your plans are for them, versus sort of the broader approach.
Oh, and that's Devin. Now, it's in general, I mean, that's where it helps to actually have a sales team in place, and combining your digital strategy with your sales approach. So when you're in a category review, or when you're doing a QBR or something, or meeting with your buyer, you have to tell them a compelling story that keeps money in their pocket, because slotting and free fill are money in their pocket, but they don't do you or really them any good when it comes to velocity. If you can make the argument that I'm going to spend the same amount of money, but put it into brick and click, or click and brick, and I'm going to increase velocity, and I'm going to put more fuel on the fire, that's where you have to really align your digital strategy to your selling story with your retailer. Selfishly, the retailer wants to know, are you going to put a bunch of money in my pocket and make it easy for me? 2, are you going to bring more? Are you going to sell more than the competitor? 3, are you going to bring more people to my category? So if you can make that argument, that's where you've got a chance.
Got it. So do you have any thoughts on Instagram versus Facebook? Where do you think an emerging brand should put their energy to drive awareness?
Well, that's where the old idea of setting an editorial calendar and building engagement, those things go away. Now this becomes a purely agnostic, even though it's through social, it's not the old social. It's simply newsfeed action. I don't care about fans. I don't care about engagement. I don't care about that stuff. I'm simply running algorithms against YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram. I don't care, because the data is going to tell me which ads are performing better and driving more conversion and sales. So it's agnostic. But it's not the old, hey, I'm doing a shot of me with my lifestyle shop with my cold pressed juice and looking pretty and cool. Everybody get into my brand. That will not drive revenue to your door. And Facebook and Instagram, basically, I can do just as well with 1,000 fans as I can with 4.5 million fans with Dish Network now, right? There is no organic push anymore. There's two buckets. There's engagement and driving fan base, or there's conversion. They're two separate ad spends or buckets, and there's no organic or minimal organic correlation anymore.
Got it. Got it. So do you have any thoughts about geo-targeted dark post ads on Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it all really comes down to anytime I can hit that right geo, psycho, and demo aligned with my retail strategy, if needed and supported. Anytime you can put, once again, I run it agnostic, right? I simply combine, and I let the data do the talking for me. I run it back against the algorithm, and I might have my preferences or the way to go, but I let the data tell me which ads, which platforms, which styles, which methodology is actually driving results, and A/B test my way to success, right?
Got it. Sounds good. Again, we encourage additional questions. There's one more we have, which is what share of these efforts are best handled by the vendor? And for third-party sources, is it best to have one organization tackle all these areas, or to split out to sort of tactical experts?
Well, I mean, everything I say is going to be biased because selfishly, we built this.
You mean CA Fortune should do it all?
But in general, what I found, like before I got acquired by CA Fortune, I was a branding shop and a digital shop. And what we found sort of along the way, these parameters were changing, and I saw these silos, right? I had inefficient digital spend. I had inefficient trade spend, inefficient shopper spend, and inefficient e-com spend. By taking it out of the silos and integrating and sliding the money back and forth and having different levers to pull, I found efficiencies with that. So whether it's CA Fortune or whoever, I do recommend having, if it is multiple partners, have them tight at the hip. Otherwise, you're going to be having a lot of redundant spend that's inefficient. So either have them tight at the hip or find an organization that can cross those pillars on your behalf.
Got it. Terrific. Any parting thoughts, Steve?
No, that's, I mean, like I said, right now, we were joking about it before, there's the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, a lot of things, there was a lot of things sort of happening, right? You were starting to see this idea of multiple channel plays and crossover and direct to consumer and click and brick, and all these things were starting to bubble up and grow, but to relative size. Just like quick serve frozen was one of my favorite aisles to be, right? I definitely wanted, I didn't want to be in the baking mix aisle, and I definitely wanted to be in single serve bowls or handheld frozen. Post-COVID, everything's changing, right? People are baking more at home. Pancake mixes are up 200%. Single serve frozen is down. Multi 2-person and 4-pack frozen is up. It's the same thing with shopper channels, meaning this whole new generation is being approached on click and brick, Amazon, and when it's not available on Amazon to direct to consumer, we trained a whole new generation on how to utilize these tools, to where my assumption is post-COVID, some new norms are going to come out of it, right? People are going to start spending more time with the family and having more meals because they've practiced. People aren't going to run back to work. It's going to be a staggered sort of effect as they're being trained. People are realizing that click and brick and ordering the food and having it sent to me is saving me a hell of a lot of time versus the 2 hours that I go in the grocery store and give my weekend away to going through that process. Somebody can actually bring it to me. I think you're going to see a smushing of, another technical term, a smushing of all these new norms coming out of it. So obviously from a branding agency, we do a lot of new brands and new product launches, et cetera. The problem folks are having right now is a lot of folks aren't launching new brands, but they need to increase the supply and sell through of their existing SKUs until the retailers get fully back in the category review game, right? Which Might happen next month. It might start to happen Q3. It might even happen more till Christmas. Or when's the next trade show going to happen? You know, is it going to be Expo East or is it going to be Fancy Foods Winter? Who knows, right? So building this model in for us has been to, while branding and creative and package design and new brand launches aren't going away, everybody is trying to increase their sell-through of their existing products. Let's just do it smartly between all the channels and get them working hand in hand and together. Whether it's, you know, duct tape in early stage with Shopify and elbow grease, all the way to using big, badass programmatic AI methodologies, it's the same fundamentals, just different bells and whistles on top of it.
Terrific. Steve, thank you so much. Terrific information. Appreciate your time. And for all tuning in, thank you all very much. Stay connected. Keep checking out what we're offering. Again, we're doing 2 or 3 sort of webinars a week. We think it's so important just to keep this incredible food and beverage industry community connected over time, and looking forward to continuing to do that.
Oh, by the way, hi, Jeff. Just so you know.
Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific Wednesday or Thursday. What day is it? Thursday.
This day.
It's all a blur. Thanks.
All right, guys, take it easy.